Hey guys, and welcome to another special episode for the Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network. I'm your host, Joe Bajio, here with my co-host, Butch Theory. Butch,
why I gotta be the co-host? Why can't I be the host and you be the co-host?
do you want to be the host?
Maybe I do want to be the host. Maybe we could just both be co-hosts.
Well,
Maybe we can both be hosts.
I guess that's true. You want to start over?
Man, I'm really excited about recording this show today.
Well, I'm glad,
about,
speaking of indecisions,
right. We've been talking about recording this podcast for a long time, and you and I talk about sunglasses nonstop just because we're nerds and we like to fish a lot.
Right.
A lot of age-old questions about, watercolor, lens color, base color, frames. I mean, the conversation with sunglasses is endless for me, I feel like.
Well, and I think you're kind of fancy too, so you got
I like to have the nicest stuff for what I'm doing.
You got a frame for every application. I got to have this frame because I'm going out and
yeah, you got to.
You're kind of a pretty boy, but that's not what today's show is about. Today it's really getting into the technical details of angling and what you're going to need to know. And so to do that, we are talking to Al Perkinson. Al is the founder and CEO of Bajio Sunglasses. They're based over in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Bajio designs and builds performance sunglasses for anglers and other water enthusiasts. The thing that's pretty cool about Bajio, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, later in the show, but they really strive to operate sustainably, and they're also contributing to a lot of the environmental issues that our oceans, our coastal areas are facing that really affect anglers. So that's really cool. But Al was also the CMO for Costa Sunglasses for 12 years. He's an avid fly fisherman, conservationist, board member of Trout Unlimited, Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. I mean, he was named dadgum Outdoor Life's magazine 25 most influential people in conservation. So, aside from the sunglasses and all the technical details, we're going to get on that. This guy's an angler. He gets it. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him today. All right, but before we get into the nitty-gritty with Al, let's take a minute and hear from those businesses that are keeping this podcast free for you each week. This week's show is brought to you by Bucks Island Marine. Bucks Island is a family-owned and operated business since 1948. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They love trade-ins for boats and motors, and they can rig your boat or ship your new motor anywhere in the United States. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. They have factory-trained and certified technicians, and you can visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588.
And also brought to you by Test Calibration. If your diesel has low power or is consuming excessive amounts of fuel, these are common signs that your turbocharger may need to be rebuilt. Don't waste your money online with the cheapest options where you get no support after the sale. Test Calibration has been selling and servicing diesel, turbochargers, and fuel injection systems since 1976. No matter if you're running a diesel in your boat, tractor, or truck, Test Calibration can help you. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com. That segment was brought to you by SunSouth. It's finally time to get back to game day and grilling, but you have to tackle the projects on your property. With John Deere equipment from SunSouth, it's no sweat because you can get your projects done faster, more efficiently, and more affordably with 0% financing for up to 72 months on select models. Plus, save 20% off select John Deere parts during their parts extravaganza sale. Get it done and get back in the game with SunSouth. Equipment for those that do. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires September 30th, 2021.
All right, so joining us today is Al Perkinson, the CEO of Bajio Sunglasses. Who better to answer a whole bunch of questions and get real nerdy on polarized sunglasses? But this is a podcast, Al, that we've needed to do this podcast for a long time. Because
we've been talking about it for years.
Gosh, I mean, I can't tell you how many pairs of sunglasses I've had over the years, how many different color combos when it comes to the base color in the lens or the mirror finish or all these things. And I've never known why I bought what I bought. I just went and picked up the most comfortable pair. And sometimes I was limited by the selection at the store. And I do a lot of different kinds of fishing. So does Butch. We see a lot of different applications. And today is going to be the podcast to end all podcasts and help people really know what kind of lens color they need to choose. So thanks for joining us, man.
Happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I think before we start getting into colors and finishes and things of that nature, first thing is, How in the heck does a polarized lens really work? What's it doing?
Well, it's knocking down the glare. And so the lens itself has these horizontal molecules in it. And I'm not a scientist, I'm a fisherman, but we
It's
have
the same
learned
problem that Joe and I usually have.
right. Well, we have learned a little bit over the years, I guess. But anyway, it acts a little bit like a Venetian blind does. And so as the light reflects off the water, it creates this glare. And so what polarized lenses do is they just take down the glare. So if you're out on the water, and I sometimes I do this just for fun. I remember a few years ago, we took the kids out and we were going to do one of those snorkeling trips out of Penny Camp in the Keys. And I was looking around the boat and all these people didn't have any sunglasses on. And I'm looking through my polarized sunglasses, and the water is just beautiful. It's all the colors of green. You can see deep down in and see the corals and all of that. I take them off and it's just like glare. You can't see any of the colors. You can't see anything under the water. I'm like, what are these people doing out here? I felt like just going around and giving them my glasses and say, do you see how beautiful this really is? Are you kidding me? So I think that's sort of the first and the biggest thing, is just to knock down that glare so you can actually see what's really there.
And you're right. It's a big deal. All the time, my wife and I are walking around the marinas or even just going for a boat ride. And I'm like, golly, there's a nice trout right there, a nice redfish. And she's like, I don't see anything at all. I'm like, well, gosh, here, got to buy her a nice pair of sunglasses now.
Yeah.
It's such a huge difference. We've been lucky enough to travel through a lot of the world to fish. And when we go to places where they don't have polarized sunglasses, they don't have any sunglasses, and the local people just go out there fishing on the boats all day long, and they're not wearing any sunglasses whatsoever. And then we give them a pair of our glasses, they put them on, and they have this emotional meltdown. They start crying half the time because they have never seen their own home. They've never actually seen it before.
Wow.
So it is a huge difference. And, whether you're an angler or not, if you're out on the water and you really want to see how beautiful it is, I'd say get some polarized sunglasses for sure.
There's no doubt. I mean, I don't know about
Makes all the difference in the world.
When you were working fishing full time, did you ever have a day where you forgot your sunglasses?
I mean, you go back home, Kat. You might as well cancel the trip.
Just a horrible mood the whole day. You're squinting around and you're just much less effective. I mean, it's fatiguing for one thing. But then if you're fishing, you're actually using your eyes for sight fishing or something like that. It's almost not even, I don't know how people do it really.
Yeah, I don't either.
Without it. And, you talk about your wife, Butch. I mean, if you're not an angler, Al, like you said, a lot of those folks on that scuba trip, maybe they don't fish. I mean, is that just the biggest thing? Is it just opens up these new opportunities, or is there more to polarized glasses than that? Like, I mean, why are they still important even if you don't fish?
I think just because they let you see what is really, the natural beauty of the place that you're in. So many of these places that you go have, the watercolors are just so incredible. The turquoise, the light blue, the clear, all those things mixing together. And, what's underwater kind of creates the brown and stuff. So if you don't have on some good polarized glasses, you're not going to see that. So you're going to miss a lot of what's beautiful about the trip that you're on. And hey, this could be something you've saved up your money for the whole year to go on the big vacation. And then you don't really fully enjoy it, because you don't have the right glasses on. There's also like a safety factor. So if you're a boater or, even if you're on a lake or you're on the ocean or whatever, and then lots of times there's stuff underneath, that's just below the surface, whether it's rocks or coral or, floating debris of some sort. And so if you don't have the right glasses on, you might not see that. So you might hit it, which is not good for anybody.
Yeah,
certainly. As we've already established, we know that we're not doctors. I'm certainly not an ophthalmologist, but the headache that I get, very, very, very quickly, I would assume there's got to be some kind of, it's got to be blocking out. Of course, it blocks out all the bad UV rays and blue light and stuff like that. It's got to be better for your eyes all around to have on polarized lenses, I would have to imagine.
Even if scientifically it's not better, you feel better at the end of the day. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's basically science, really.
Right.
We've done the research.
It's science at this point.
It's done.
Well, I'm glad, Al, you're talking about the colors, right? The colors in the water, how, you're talking about greens and blues. And I think about like in areas that I fish where maybe we've got a white sand bottom and how that creates a different color versus if we're fishing over grass or fishing over a mud bottom, things of that nature. So that really brings me to the next part of this, which is deciding on the color itself of your lens. And I'll let you use the terms you guys like to use, but I always call it the base color, like the color you see when you're looking out. And then there's the mirror finish. You see the blue mirror or the green mirror or the silver mirror or no mirror at all. So when it comes to base colors, let's focus on that first. And let's break it down into the types of light that you may be in. So we're going to have typically either bright days or low light times. It may be bright because it's the middle of the day. It may be low light because it's dawn or dusk, but it also may be low light because it's cloudy as well. So when you start thinking about lens color and light, what are your recommendations on choosing a color for those different times?
There's a couple of factors. Color is one of them. The other is what we call VLT, or visual light transmission. So how much light is actually coming through the lens and how much gets blocked. So there's some standards on that. I mean, if it's below 9.5%, 9%, you can't drive in them. It's illegal to drive because they're so dark. And so most lenses will start around 10, 11% light transmission. So a lot of the blues and greens, super dark, will have very low light transmission. And then you've seen yellow lenses that some brands have, and those are up around 22, 24% light transmission. So the yellow would be for low light, super low light condition. It lets in a lot of light. And the blue and green would usually be for highlight situations. So they'd let in a very small amount of light. So that visual light transmission is one thing to ask about and to know about. What we found was it's kind of a barbell. You have a lot of the brands have the light transmission around 10 or 11%. They're super dark. And then they might have one that's 24% that's super light, but there's nothing in the middle. And so if you take that really dark lens and you go up to Alaska and it's overcast, I've done it. And you're like, man, I can't wear these. They're too dark. I cannot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the ones that are super light, you might be like, whoa, too much light. I can't do that. Also, the super light ones, you have to be careful because those may not actually qualify as polarized lenses because the polarization is maybe around 60% or so, and it's very low. And so they're polarized, but technically you can't call them polarized. So long answer to your question, but light transmission, how much light it lets through is important to know. When it comes to colors, the color has more to do with the level of contrast that you're going to see. And so if you think of the gray-based colors, those are going to be very low contrast. Everything looks kind of like it does naturally. It's just darker. So if you're bill fishing, you're on an offshore boat, most of those captains tend to like a gray base just because they can spot a bill against the water or against the sky very easily. People who sight fish, whether it's bass fishermen or trout fishermen or saltwater fly fishermen who are looking for tarpon and permit and so forth, they're looking for fish against the bottom. So they want a lens that's going to be more high contrast. So that's where you get into the brown family. And it can go from brown to copper to vermilion to red. And the more red, the more contrast you're going to have, is what we find. And so that's why we put the red base on a lot of our most technical lenses that are meant for sight fishing. So again, two things: light transmission, that helps guide you in terms of, what conditions you're going to be fishing in. Lots of people want a super low light lens as well as the super high light lens. So you have two. And then the other is just the stack and the combination of base lens color, but also mirror color. Polarized film has a color. There are different coatings that you put on there that have colors. So the stack of all those layers really determines more the level of contrast you're going to have when you're fishing, more so than how much light gets let in.
Gotcha. So thinking about these different conditions, and a lot of anglers probably have like one thing they do the majority of the time. And then think there's guys, a fair number of people out there like myself, like Butch, where we kind of do a whole bunch of different stuff and maybe not anything in proportion to anything else. It's like, hey, sometimes I may be blue water fishing, sometimes I may be fishing off the beach, that kind of thing. So when I think about polarized sunglasses, number one, like we said earlier, I'm thinking about, first off, is just comfort on the water, being able to see, that kind of thing. Starting getting into sight fishing, where it's integral, that I be able to see the fish to actually be successful. Are there any things that you want to think about as it's related to that? Because, you were talking about those brown lenses and having brown family of lenses, having more contrast. What about, if you're talking about fishing in a time of day where it's going to be brighter? Are those brown lenses, is it still going back to that light transmission that you need to be focused in on? Or can folks latch on to a color?
Well, lots of times the color is going to tell you, it's going to give you a hint anyway as to what the base lens color is.
Okay.
But what's happened in the industry is typically the blue lenses, blue mirrors will have a gray base, and the green mirrors will have a brown base or a copper base. Silver, there's both out there. There's silver with the gray base and there's silver mirror with the green base. And so doesn't tell you for sure what the base color is going to be, but that's kind of the industry standard, is those three mirror colors and those three base lenses.
Gotcha.
Color.
So
yeah.
for a lot of light, and somebody who's not, like you mentioned earlier, that guy who's bill fishing offshore, he's really just he wants everything to look like it does to the naked eye, just with less glare. That's somebody that's going to want to choose more of the gray family in the base color. Whereas somebody who's looking to try to use their glasses to make contrast happen, so they're trying to amplify in a sight fishing type situation, they're trying to amplify the contrast between the fish and the bottom. That's going to be somebody that's going to want to choose more towards the brown family, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yep, that is right.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned that mirror finish. Why? Well, so how does that change things? Why is there a mirror finish on the lenses?
Well, the mirror tends to make the lens about 2 percentage points darker. So when you have a gray base, and let's say it's a 12% light transmission, if you put that mirror on it, it will go down to 10% in general. So it makes it darker. It also has effect on just your overall vision. Now, some people will tell you, hey, mirrors are just for looks and it's just for fashion. That's really not what we have found to be the case. I can take a gray base and I can put a blue mirror on it, and then I can take a gray base and put a green mirror on it, and it looks very different. Okay, so it does make a difference. And that's been one of the funnest things that we've been doing. Again, it's kind of geeky sunglass stuff, I guess, but playing around with this whole stack of all the different combinations that you can do of polarized film color, mirror color, base lens color, anti-reflective coating color, all of those things together. And the way that we do it is kind of cool, man. We have this really cool lens manufacturing company that we work with. And so I will talk to them, we will talk to them, Renato and I, and say, look, these are the specifications that we want for this lens. This is where it's going to be fishing. This is what kind of light transmission we want. This is how much blue light we want to block, how much yellow light we want to block. We can talk about that in a little bit too. And here's the specifications. Then they plug it into their computer and see what's going to happen if we put all those different combinations together. And then they'll spit out this spectral chart that shows you all of those features. Here's the light transmission. Here's how much different types of light is getting let through, all of that. And then we're like, you go back and forth and we're like, yeah, that looks great. So then they'll actually make some samples, send them over to us. We'll take them out in the water and we'll test them, kind of like you guys were doing this week, you were telling me about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say, hey, let's compare this to this, that to that, dial it in, take it out in the Keys or take it out in the lake or whatever, dial it in and then be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. So that's super fun, man, because these, as you can tell from this conversation, it can get a little bit complicated.
Well, you're right. And that's exactly why we wanted to do this podcast and get this information out to our listeners. I was lucky which I've done more fishing this past week than I've done in the past 3 months. Like I was telling you earlier, I was in Virginia for 3 days, totally different application, sight fishing for ling or cobia. I have the Bales Beach with the drum lenses, and we had a couple other Bajios on the boat, the Trevallies with a couple different frames. And so we just kind of put them through the ringer. We started fishing at 6 a.m. and quit fishing at 6 p.m. most days. And it was interesting to see the different applications for the different lenses. I mean, with the drum, they're more of a brighter lens. And early and late, I was the one that was seeing the fish and the other guys weren't. And, we did a lot of testing with the Trevally versus the drum during the middle of the day. And I was still seeing the fish that they were seeing, but the Trevally, as you were explaining, is a much darker lens. And it was much better whenever it was super duper bright out. Anything with cloud cover, even with, the sun being out, that puts a weird glare if you're sight fishing. If there's like those high cirrus clouds, and my drum would outpower the Trevallies in that aspect as well.
Yeah, that drum is pink, and so we went through the whole process I was just mentioning, and we found this lens that was just unbelievable. But the problem is it came out pink, and we're like, wow, is anybody actually going to wear a pink lens? And so we didn't make a ton of them at first because we're like, yeah, I don't know, probably not, but this lens is sick. And the word got out how well the thing performs. And, if you're sight fishing, or like you said, even in high light conditions, but definitely in lower light, you could just see the fish so much better, and you could see through the water, I don't know, 10 feet, 15 feet farther. Is a really big difference. And so we sold out immediately as the word got out. And so we had to make a whole bunch more. We sold out of them, and now we've got a whole bunch more. And you never know what's going to take off and what's not. But I think it's just a great example of finding that optimal combination of all the different layers and the right light transmission. And then some cool stuff happens, some magic happens out on the water. It's really cool.
And kudos to you and your team for having the awareness to call it drum instead of pink. Right. I think most anglers are very happy to wear drum, whereas pink, they're like, I don't know about that. But
exactly. And if they work, I don't care what color they are. Right? They can be highlighter green or pastel pink. If they work, I don't really care what color they are, in my opinion.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break from the sunglass discussion, and let's check out some of the businesses that are making these podcasts possible for you. Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but more importantly, where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. Make the choice that professional captains all over the Gulf make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check it out at hiltonsoffshore.com.
And also brought to you by Fishing Chaos fishing tournaments coming up near you. For Alabama saltwater anglers, you'll want to check out these awesome tournaments. The 2021 Saltwater Fanatics 6th Annual Inshore Championship will be held on September 11th and 12th with the lowest entry fee and the highest payouts. This is a tournament you for sure will not want to miss. Details, rules, and ticket purchases are now available for purchase on the Fishing Chaos app. A Thin Blue Line presents Guns and Hoses. This is a tournament to benefit the Behind the Line Foundation and is a nationwide tournament in support of first responders. This tournament includes bass, redfish, speckled trout, and walleye. Tickets are on sale now on the Fishing Chaos app. This tournament will take place September 11th through September 26, 2021. For our kayak anglers, check out the month-long Redfish Challenge that repeats in September and October. There are Gulf Coast and Atlantic divisions. 5 redfish aggregate. Link determines the winner. Tickets are available for purchase on the Fishing Chaos app. More tournaments near you, info, and full tournament details, including ticket purchases, can be found online at fishingchaos.com in the tournament tab. And if you do not see your tournament listed, fill out the contact form to have your tournament included.
All right, and back to the lens discussion. Kind of getting back to the mirror finishes and whatnot. You're saying that basically that's used to just dim it down a little bit more, and so you're still wanting to choose based on application. You're still really wanting to choose your color based on what you're trying to do. So it sounds like for a sight fisherman, a guy who's exclusively a sight fisherman, he's going to want to be in those browns, like you said, maybe going to a drum or something like that. And then for a guy that's maybe just trying to reduce the glare, not so important that you think about a guy, use your analogy or your example. If I'm fishing for billfish, if I've got a spread of lures I'm trolling, it's great that I see the marlin as he comes up in the spread, but I'm going to drop a bait back to him. It's not like I'm going to miss him altogether. Whereas if I'm on a flat, if I don't see that fish, I may spook him before I ever get a chance to make a cast. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. How does that change when you start dealing with different watercolors? Because I've seen people say, oh, this is better for green water, this is better for blue water, and I deal like here on the Emerald Coast of Florida, we've got our bays are a lot of times are gin clear, super clear water. Our coastal areas or near shore areas are this emerald green, water. And of course you go offshore, you've got blue water, and I've sight fished in all of them. So is there any thought process on watercolor and lens color choices?
Well, I think that lots of times the watercolor is driven by the color of the bottom. So the short answer, I think, is no. Okay. Short answer is no. I think it's more that type of fishing that you're doing. And if you're trying to look down into the water column and, no matter what color the water is, you are going to see better with a brown, copper, rose base, something in the brown red family. And so you're going to see the fish better, the bottom better, no matter what color water that you're in. So I don't think watercolor is big a differentiator as some, at least for me, with my experience. We don't build our lenses for watercolor. We just sort of build them for light conditions and, more the bottom conditions than the watercolor.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. That would be, like I was saying, I did a lot of fishing this week. I was in after the green water of the Chesapeake Bay. I was back the next day in Mobile Bay looking for triple tail and 6 inches of visibility. And then 2 days after that, I was, offshore in cobalt blue water.
You're just bragging now.
I know, man. I haven't got to fish that much in a while. I'm really just trying to rub it in for you because I know you're a little salty about it.
A little bit.
But they worked great in every application. So, and that does, the age-old question. I think green lenses are better for green water, blue lenses are better for blue water, and the ambers and stuff were what I thought was for dingier water and or inshore fishing. So, thanks for the clarification on that for sure.
So, Al, getting back to those mirror finishes, you're saying that is going to bring down some of that light transmission. Does green do more than blue or vice versa? So I'm guessing what I'm hearing here is that, like, okay, I'm a sight fisherman, I'm going to choose from the browns. If I'm less concerned about sight fishing, I might choose from the grays. Now I'm looking at mirror finish, and so if I'm fishing a lot of really bright conditions, so I'm fishing flats, it's the sun's up in the sky, I'm going to want to get the darker version of the lenses. Whereas if I'm fishing low light conditions where most of my sight fishing occurs at dawn and dusk periods, sun's not fully overhead, I could probably get away with more light transmission. Which one would you go to then? Is one darker than the other?
No, really, they're all in that 1% to 2% range is what they're gonna do. But if you were to ask the manufacturer what is the light transmission on this lens, that would take into account everything. So you really don't have to worry too much about what the base color was and what the mirror color is doing in terms of light transmission. It's just what is light transmission, and that's all sort of factored in.
Yeah. It's making sense to me now.
Yeah, we haven't really found that all the mirrors pretty much do the same thing. It's all about 2%. So that's kind of where you have to start as you're building a lens, is to know where you're going to end up. So you may start higher with the base color, knowing that that's going to come down when you throw that mirror on there.
Gotcha. So what is that order? You've mentioned several of the browns. What's going to allow, you mentioned yellow. I don't know that y'all make a yellow lens, but so if a guy is, hey, I'm a low light sight fisherman, I want to let in as much light as possible and have as much contrast as possible. Run me up the spectrum of most light transmission and color, and then less all the way to least light transmission.
It varies by brand, right? Everybody builds their own lenses from scratch for the most part. I mean, if you're one of the top tier companies, you do that. And like I mentioned before, for the most part out there, it's a big barbell. So you have a lot of stuff in the really dark, and then you have a few of the really light with the yellow. So when we started Bajio, that's one of the things that I wanted to solve for. I felt like we needed lenses that would hit everybody's needs. And so we created a bit of a system, I guess you'd call it. So we start at 10% with blue, then we go to 12% with green, then we go to 14 or 15% range with silver, and then we go to 16% with pink. And then we'll be coming out with our version of the super low light very soon. It's not yellow, it's a completely different color. It actually will be purple. So you get the scoop on that, but that'll be around 18 or 19%.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to do is just simplify this for people. So you know what light transmission is associated with each color. And you know that pink and purple are going to be super light. You know that blue and green are going to be super dark. And then the guys in the middle are going to be in the middle.
Yeah.
And it just it kind of simplifies it. And then as you get lighter, for us, our only gray based lens is blue. The rest are in the brown family because our brand is a little bit more about inshore and sight fishing than it is about the big offshore stuff. But also because a gray is a gray. There's not a lot of innovation and experimentation that can be done with gray. So really where the cool stuff comes in is in these high contrast, like I said, blues and coppers and reds. So as we move up the light spectrum, we get more red. We start out with green is brown, and then our silver is copper, and then our pink is red. Our super low light is going to be red as well. And that combination seems to work. You get a lot of light coming in, and you got that red base, which is super high contrast, and sometimes it's super intense, but man, you see the fish better. And so even though it's a little bit intense, it's a better tool for sight fishing, especially on those lower light days.
I think that's a really good way. You've summed it up really well with that spectrum you just gave. And I think most people are going to be able to decide from what you just said that, hey, this would be the lens color that most fits my application. But undoubtedly, somebody's going to say, well, what's the one that does it all? Because we get that question all, hey, man, I'd really like to have a boat that I can fish the flats with and then take off, 40 miles offshore, fish for tuna.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, that boat doesn't exist. It doesn't do both of those things well. It might be able to do both of those things, but it's not going to be the best for each application. So is there that in sunglasses? Do you need to have a lens purpose built for that application? I mean, because obviously you have one purpose built for each application, but is there a middle ground where one kind of does a little bit of both pretty good?
Yeah, I think that the middle ground is going to be around the 14 or 15% light transmission. So for us, the silver lens is smack dab in the middle. It's got a copper base to it. So it's a little bit brown, it's a little bit red. It's kind of like your middle of the road. If you only got one pair, that's probably the pair you want to get. On the other hand, the pink, a lot of people are wearing that all day long. I don't know.
Drum. Hey, Al, they're drums. All right.
Yeah,
drum.
The drum. The pink drum is a lot of people are wearing that all day, especially like when you get a little bit older, your eyes get kind of tired. They need more light. So I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but the older I get, the more I'm like, I'm going to wear the drum all day, or I'm going to wear, back in the day, the yellow all day. And it works, it works. So I would say either the silver or the pink drum for us.
I like it. Butch, we talked about this before we started recording, and I said I wasn't going to bring this up because this show's all about lens color, but I got to ask you, Al, let's talk about lens construction a little bit. Like, why plastic and glass? Why is that out there? Because I just think if anybody's listening to this and they're thinking about colors for their lenses, they also need to be thinking about construction. So
certainly,
why the difference? What difference does it make?
Well, the biggest difference is that glass lenses are harder, and so they don't scratch as easy, right? So there's an Abbey value test that you do, and well, there's a Bayer test for hardness, and the Abbey value is about clarity. And so I think it's a myth that's out there that glass is more clear. Technically, the Abbey value is higher, and so technically it is more clear, but honestly, the human eye cannot tell the difference. So it's really not about glass being more clear, more pure, and plastic being less so. The plastics that we make these days are so sophisticated that there's not many impurities in there, and they're super clear. So really, it's about hardness. There's different types of plastics too, right? So polyurethane is probably the softest of all the plastics, so it scratches super easy. And there are a couple of brands that came out with these whiz bang new lenses, but they're made out of polyurethane and they scratched really easily, and they didn't last that long. Polycarbonate is really hard. There was another one called CR39 that we used to use, but it kind of was not that popular, so there wasn't enough innovation going on around it. But that one was the hardest plastic out there. But most companies are going to be using poly, and poly is pretty hard. A plastic lens typically is lighter than a glass lens.
Yeah.
And so a lot of females, for example, they don't like the weight of the glasses with the glass lens on their nose, even though, our glass lenses are thinner than the typical glass lens. And so they're lighter, but still there is a little bit of a difference. And you can't tell, especially if you have a really big lens, the weight can be an issue. But yeah, glass, scratch resistant. That's why it's so good for fishermen, because we got our shirt tail, we got sand on it, we're cleaning our glasses, and glass just is really hard to scratch it. It's interesting, like glass, the way it's made, it's sort of like old school. You got dudes with lead boots and lead vests, and they're melting sand and all these different chemicals that go into the lenses in this huge vat, and it's like they pour it out. It's like bright orange, it looks super old school, like some old ancient foundry or something. So because of that process, it limits how much experimentation and how much you can do. You have to do a big pour and, in order to get the lenses that you want. On plastic, it's a lot more computerized, a lot more mechanized. So like I was talking about before, you can give them all the specifications. They punch it into the computer. They spit out a sample really fast. There's no molten glass and all that craziness going on. And so you can experiment a lot more. And therefore, typically the plastic lenses are more sophisticated, put a finer point on it. And purely from an optical standpoint, the plastic lenses, if it's a good one, are going to be better actually than the glass.
My own personal experience with that was that I bought some glass lenses, and I wasn't overly, like you said, I couldn't tell a huge difference by any means.
Well, you and I were just talking about this, Joe. If they are a little bit clearer, can your eye tell the difference
right.
this day and age with the technology? And what's the trade-off?
Right.
As far as weight versus, is there any differences? So that's an awesome.
For me, the trade-off, like you said, they're heavier, and so like a lot of times if you're fishing, you think about maybe you're bent over, you're taking a hook out of a fish's mouth, you're rigging a ballyhoo, you're
old
doing
nose slide,
something, and those glasses start sliding down your nose because you're sweating, you got sunscreen on or something like that, and that's a trade-off with glass. I think the reason I had glass was I actually ordered a prescription pair. And can you do prescriptions in plastic lenses?
Oh yeah, almost all prescriptions are done in plastic.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, I can't really remember, but I didn't notice a big difference, like you said. But I do love the lightness of the glasses nowadays. I mean, Butch was mentioning the Bell's Beach. I got a pair of those as well, and man, so comfortable. I went through the line at ICAST and tried them all on, and that was the one that just spoke to me. It was like made for my face. So that was definitely a nod in my opinion, a nod towards plastic.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break and hear from a few of this week's sponsors. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers that gray triggerfish, greater amberjack, or red snapper must be reported through Snapper Check prior to landing the fish in Alabama. For more information about Snapper Check, please visit outdooralabama.com.
And also MB Ranch King. MB Ranch King hunting blinds and feeders are built to last right here in the USA. With durability and convenience in mind, MB Ranch King's maintenance-free blinds are constructed with high-grade steel and come in a variety of sizes to meet any hunter's needs. They also offer high-quality, easy-to-use corn and protein feeders that can be filled with both feet on the ground. Call Kevin today for more info or a quote at 205-807-2937. MB Ranch King, built in the pursuit of perfection. All right, and back to the discussion. Butch, I don't know, man. What other questions do you have? I feel like I know what to do now, which is awesome. It only took me 30 years to ask somebody these questions.
Right. No
that
doubt.
knows the answer.
I can't think of much, man. One of the other things that I noticed with the Bells Beach was, sight fishing conditions is usually, well, you want it to be ideally calm and super hot. And I like to tuck my buffs kind of up under my sunglasses almost, and you're always battling with fog, your sweat fog, or you get a little droplets on the inside of your glasses. There really wasn't much of that with the Bells Beach and the Bajio. I was really impressed with the fog factor. Is there anything you guys do different there?
Well, Bales has side shields that have a slit in them, and so the air can come through that slit and reduce the fog. So that's what that feature is for. Fog can be an issue, especially if you're going in and out of air conditioning. But if you're out on the boat all the time, it shouldn't be too bad. I do. There's one other thing on lenses that is really, really important that we should talk about, and that is the technology that's in the lens to manage light. The light spectrum is like a rainbow, and it has different colors going from blue to green, to red, to yellow, and it's like a rainbow. And so what you can do now with these sophisticated lenses is you can actually block certain light that comes through that is harmful from a health standpoint or is harmful from your ability to see clearly. The two parts of the spectrum that produce some light that causes problems are yellow and blue. And so most of the lenses that you see out there focus on reducing yellow light. Yellow light kind of irritates your eye, kind of like scratchy light. And so you squint and it makes you not be able to see the reds and the greens nearly as well. So when you reduce the yellow light, all of a sudden you'll notice that the reds and greens pop really well and your eye relaxes. And so that's where the focus has been over the last 10 or 15 years is yellow light reduction. So that's super important, but the amount of yellow light that comes through to your eye compared to blue is, maybe 10, 15% as much. So really where we landed with our technology is we said, you know what, yellow light's important. Let's manage that down. But blue light management is really important. Not only does it cause a lot of different health issues, if you're out in the sun, which is the biggest producer of blue light, your body stops producing melatonin. Melatonin helps you sleep. So lots of times you find if you stare at a computer screen, which creates blue light, LED, blue light, your phone, blue light, the sun, the biggest producer, you may get home from a long day of fishing and have a hard time sleeping unless, you've had as many beers as I usually have. Not a problem.
That's
but
right.
For the purposes of this discussion. So anyway, blue light reduction, that has been a big emphasis of ours, and it's made a huge difference. And the reasons that the lenses are so clear, and everybody who tries them on will be like, oh my God, this is the clearest lens I've ever worn, is because when you reduce blue, you reduce the glare and the haze that's associated. Like if you look at a blue light bulb, there's all this haze around it. So if you knock that down, then everything clears up. So the Bajio technology blocks blue light, 95% of it at 445 nanometers. 445 is where the bad blue light stops and the good blue light starts. So you knock out all the bad and you let through the good. So that's another thing that's really important for folks to ask, is that light management question and focusing on the blue and the yellow light reduction.
I'm glad you brought that up. My wife bought me some of these, blue light blocking glasses. I don't have them on right now. I was sitting here looking for them because I should have them on. We're all staring at screens, but she bought me some of those, and it made a tremendous difference wearing those in the office day in and day out. I get to the end of the day and I don't have the eye fatigue. And I mean, I would feel it. You get to the end of the day, you're just kind of like, gosh, I can't stare at the screen anymore. And ever since I've switched over to that, I get to the end of the day, I don't have any of that eye fatigue. And like you were saying, that harsh yellow light where it's almost like a stinging feeling.
Scratchy. Mm-hmm.
This is like a deeper, almost like muscular fatigue, almost like behind the eye. And I don't have that anymore. I didn't know that y'all's lenses had that technology, but that makes me even more excited to wear them fishing, because I know how much I love my blue light blocking lenses just for staring at screens. So that's really cool that y'all have focused in on that. And I've seen a lot about that, not so much in angling information, but just in health information out there about blue light. And because we're all staring at our screen so much more, that's going to become more and more of a focus. And y'all are already there.
Yeah, like when COVID came along, that really spiked interest in this whole thing, because people really were locked in their houses looking at their screens all day. But yeah, we just asked the question, hey, what happens when you're out on the water? And what we found out from the scientists was that the sun was the biggest producer, and it's a lot worse than staring at screens all day. So we just brought that into fishing. We brought that in to the outdoors, and I don't know of any other brand that is doing this right now. So I would just try them out and see what you think, because it's crazy. You tap on the lens, and you're like, I feel like I don't even have a lens on. I'm not just bullshit. This is
sorry, bullshit.
That's right. Yeah, whatever. But it's crazy. It really does work, and I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, man. Well, you guys are not just about sunglasses, and I think that y'all's mission is really cool as well. So take a minute. I think you've done a great job of helping folks understand what they need to think about, the questions they need to ask if they're in the market for another pair of polarized sunglasses. I know what I need to do for my type of fishery. But tell us about Bajio, and I love y'all's mission. Tell us a little bit more about what y'all got going on.
Our mission is to fight to save the stuff that we love, and we love fishing. We love the ocean. We love all types of fishing, but our biggest love is saltwater flats fishing, the tarpon and the permit and bonefish, stuff like that. Barracudas is the most underrated fish on the planet, man. Those are the most fun fish to catch, man. They're especially on a fly rod, super fun. But we just wanted to put the resources that we're able to generate, towards helping to save and protect the parts of the world that we love, and keep them wild, keep them healthy, keep them full of fish. And so, that's what we're doing on a lot of different levels. You'll see a lot of specific products, limited edition type stuff coming out that will say, hey, buy this shirt or buy this hat, and we'll make a donation to a specific cause. But just bigger than that, we're working with scientists, with not-for-profit organizations, which, I've done personally, and my wife, Marguerite, has done personally as well over the years, to just do the things that we need to do to there's people out there who just want to exploit, and whether it's a corporation or it's an individual, they're just thinking about themselves, and they get kind of greedy and get kind of selfish and just want to take from these resources, but don't think about the next generation. And we have to, if we're going to save these things, if we're going to keep these things, we have to act in sustainable ways, and we have to fight against those people that need to be smacked. You have mining companies coming in to mine sand out of the flats and just leave huge gaping holes and erosion and all this stuff. And then they just pack up their stuff and leave. And, and it's kind of ruined for the rest of us. So yeah, fighting for the flats is a big part of our mission, but also making our products and doing our manufacturing in sustainable ways. So we're carbon neutral from inception. We buy offsets to offset the carbon we do produce. And what we found was this company that will plant mangroves as a way to help you offset your carbon. And we're like, it's like 4 times more expensive than normal stuff, but we're like, screw it. That's our mission, man. That's perfect. That's fish habitat as well as carbon sequestration. So total home run on that front. Our frames are made out of plant-based materials. So it's half the weight and 10 times the strength, and it biodegrades a lot easier and, it's more gentle on the planet. So, that's a little bit about how we're just trying to show up and set an example, do what we can with what we got, maybe inspire some other folks to do more. There's already a lot of people out there doing some great stuff. So we're just trying to help.
Well, I know that anglers are going to get behind that because, we've all had our favorite fishing hole affected over the years from different things. And, I think that we're probably due for a frames conversation as well, but I don't think we got time for that today. I did like that you were talking about the Bells Beach and having those vents. I just kind of always thought that stuff was just for looks, and I guess some of it is. You got to look good in your sunglasses first, and I think that's the first
and foremost.
Yeah. But there's some technical things going on with frames that you guys obviously are doing as well, specifically for anglers. If folks want to go check out your website, look at the different frame options that are out there, and take a look at Bajio, where do they go?
BajioSunglasses.com, and Bajio is Bajio, and sunglasses is sunglasses. So yeah, Bajio Sunglasses. We got a lot of social platforms as well on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Got some cool films out there on YouTube now. So yeah, check us out. And if you have any questions, just pick up the phone and call. We got real people here answering the phone and taking care of you. So yeah, give it a shot.
Al, it's a real pleasure, man. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us, and we'll look forward to having a conversation again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Man, that's an awesome segment. You guys check out our great sponsor while we take a break.
The Hold the Line Saltwater Fishing Tournament. Mark your calendars for September 25th, 2021. The Hold the Line Saltwater Fishing Tournament is a fundraiser for the Women's Resource Center of Mobile and is sponsored by the Church of the Island. This is an inshore tournament with an all-live weigh-in at Dolphin Island Marina held on September 25th, 2021. There will be cash payouts for speckled trout, redfish, and flounder, and an additional jackpot for each. Learn more about WRC Mobile at wrcmobile.org.
Man, that was some awesome stuff, Joe. Awesome company. Al seems like a really, really, really cool guy. Obviously knows his stuff. He's been around the block for a long time. I love that he's a conservationist. I love that Bajio is getting behind, conservation on a global level. And it sounds like they're doing some really, really awesome stuff, man. We learned a lot today. What did you take away from this?
Man, I really like what Al was saying about them being, kind of their foundation is in the flats and with sight fishing. Because I feel like if you understand sight fishing, you understand how important sunglasses are. And then, you can always have it and not need it. But what I really took away from this was that it sounded like it's really more about light transmission than it was about it having a certain color for a certain set of conditions. And like you said earlier, what we've always heard, blue for blue and green for green, and just there's all these things that roll around out there is how to pick. And it really isn't that simple. But my big takeaway was if I'm sight fishing predominantly, I'm going to the browns, the brown family. If I'm not sight fishing as much, then I'm going to the gray family. Those browns are going to give me more contrast. The grays, less contrast, just darken it down a little bit. And I feel like I know what to do now,
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
And also I really need 2 pair. I need 2 pair of glasses. I mean, really.
Yeah.
It's basically science. I have to tell the wife, I maybe need 4 or 5 pair. I mean, conditions change drastically throughout the day. You got to be ready for whatever.
I feel like you got to have every lens combo there is, really. If you really want to be ready, you could wear, and then you could wear them all like on your belt. You could have 4 or 5 pair on your belt, maybe even get them in like a fanny pack or something.
Ooh, I like a custom fanny pack. It's nothing like it.
All right, man, let's get out of here. That's been a good show. I hope it's helped you guys figure out what you need to know in choosing your next pair of sunglasses, and appreciate you guys tuning in. If we missed anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us at Alabama at bestfishingreport.com, Northwest Florida at bestfishingreport.com, info at Great Days Outdoors. Pick one and let us know what you want to know that we may have missed. If not, we will talk to you guys again next time.
That's going to wrap it up this week, folks. You guys please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll catch y'all next week. You guys keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by Sam's Stop and Shop is your one-stop shop located at 27122 Canal Road in Orange Beach, Alabama. Sam's has a little bit of everything, including a deli, inshore, offshore, and surf fishing tackle. They also have bait, clothing, groceries, name brand sunglasses, and so much more. Stop by and shop or call them at 251-981-4245 today.
This week's fishing report brought to you by me, Angelo DePaola, The Coastal Connection. Find us online at thecoastalconnection.com.
And also brought to you by B&M Pole Company. B&M Pole Company is more than just panfish. Check out their Sam Super Salt series designed for shallow water fishing for trout and redfish at bnmpoles.com. And also brought to you by Photonus Defense PD Pro Ultralight Ultra Compact Night Vision Systems. Simply the best in-class night vision systems ever built. Contact them at photonusdefense.com to learn more. Photonus Defense, Masters of Darkness. Fish Bites. And also brought to you by Fish Bites. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits as well as tackle at fishbites.com. Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. And also Killer Dock. Killer Dock uses marine grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. Killer Dock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdock.com to see more.